This is the ultimate blueprint to design your own learning management system. And in the next 7 minutes, we're going to talk about the model of your content, more about simplicity, and also a few design strategies if you start out with your LMS. I'm cutting to the long shot just simply because I clean forgot to do that during the ad break or before the ad break. So welcome back, and here we go. I want to tell you now about a quote, and this is something that I love. I love the movies, as you know, and I love Indiana Jones. And there's a fabulous line that Indiana Jones has once when he talks about maps, and he says, "We don't follow maps to buried treasure, and X never ever marks the spot." And I think, although that may be true in Indiana's world, for me, a map is one of the most important things because it gives you the motivation, it gives you the lay of the land, and you get to understand where you're going. And I think this is a really important thing for students as well when they get in there. And that is why I think it's really important to start by seeing how you can place your own material in some kind of a map world. And if I had to take that to a visual world for you, I'm going to talk all about models. I love model railway lines, and I think the thing that I love the most about those little trains going around and the steam, this is not my own model set, but one that I admire a lot. The amazing thing about it is that there's fine detail at the bottom, but if you do pull out and look at it at a high level, the model railway sits in front of you and you see the whole plot with all of the turnouts and all of the spaces and the tunnels and everywhere the trains can go. And this idea of a map or an overview is really one of the most important things that you can do when you start putting your material together. Are there 8 things or 12 things or 6 things or 9 levels? What is there that is going to be representative of your material that you can show in some kind of form of a model? It is one of the most amazing things to start working in color ranges or with icons or some kind of a visual representation of what it is that you do, particularly if there is a system of some kind or a sequence of events or some layering that really complicates this material that you work with. So when you start working with your curriculum and as you start planning the curriculum, one of the first things that you can do is to identify the model and be very clear about how the serious set of bundles may represent all of the content, but in a finer way. You're working with one segment at a time, and you can always jump back to show your students what the big picture is doing. Very important to do it that way. So here's some ideas. Figure out the purpose or the intent of a particular course. What is the offer that you have for the student? Figure out after that the depth of it and the dimension, if you like, and how much information you really want to share before you then break it down into those nuggets of chapters and of learning key learning points that you want per particular chapter. Figure out the narrative, the themes. Are you going to have bridges that connect ideas? Are you going to talk about bubbles? Are you going to talk about pearls on a string as a beautiful necklace? What is the metaphor that you're going to use in order to make this very clear to your audience? You want to look at the resources then and start getting your material together, and then of course constantly review and evaluate. But I would say at the heart of it, you want to keep it really, really simple. Now, more so than ever, it is really important to keep it simple because I think people have a finite amount of time that they can spend online. And if you're going to have a learning management system that sits online and your course is going to come at them, you have to imagine that they had a full day of Zoominars or a full day of talking to people in a digital space. So they're still staying in that 16 by 9 space. And because of that, you have to work so much harder to retain them. If you wanted to look at some basics, I would say, remember that people don't have time. Nobody wants to write a big dissertation. They really do want to have something light. It's an era of micro-learning. And then it's also hard if people just, they'll give up. If it's just too difficult, they're just not going to do it. I want to show you one or two interesting models that also have a fantastic way of making complex material very, very simple. And the first one that comes to mind, if you've ever seen the Human-Centered Design Toolkit, it's available online, you can download it. It's just so beautiful because it talks about a complex design from the world of entrepreneurship. And it tries to really simplify real complicated and convoluted concepts that are sophisticated for folk who are just on ground level. And it is just too wonderful to watch. If you look at it, I'm jumping to one of the layouts as well. They work in color schemes. You know exactly where you are. You understand exactly how it works. And it's just so simple and beautiful to read. In a similar way, 10X Entrepreneurs and the wonderful Jason Goldberg has presented this fabulous model as well of 12 disciplines for an entrepreneur. And what's wonderful about it is he finds a representation that says these are the 4 personal skills or disciplines that you have as an entrepreneur, and you see immediately in the model how that breaks down into the larger scale and immediately becomes his 12 months of boot camps, and it becomes part of the program and part of those 12 wonderful disciplines that an entrepreneur needs to know and have if they are going to scale their business. You can find more about that online as well at 10xe.co.za. Now, design strategy really starts for me by looking at your own CI or brand. It is your website, it is your system, it's your material. And because of that, it feels that the brand should come from you. Look at your CI really closely and make that be the initial inspiration as you start working on your design strategy. From there, you want to make sure that the navigation is going to be crystal clear to your audience. You want to look at some layout boards and figure out how the material is going to flow, and then make sure also that you are considering responsive design. Responsive design relates to how all of the softwares work across all of the different platforms. So something that you may see perfectly on a website is going to look just awful on a small phone. And because of that, you have to know how the different kinds of page layouts work when it breaks down into specific platforms or specific devices. And then finally, you want to make sure that you have great imagery. Now from here, the next step really is to go and put together a visual style board if you like, and I've talked about this in the design show. We talked a lot about the kind of boards that you would use or the kind of slides that you would use. It isn't any different for a learning management system. You're going to have hints and tips, you're going to have cheat sheets, you're going to have lists. At some stages, you're going to have large documents that you're going to download. So all of those things need some icons and some visuals. And I'd say the place to start really with this is to begin by looking at your CI element breakdown, the font set that you're going to use so it's consistent, and the kind of icon set that you're going to use.